All right. G'day, everyone. Welcome to my first live stream for RA-Aus, broadcasting live from the big smoke of Canberra here in Fishwick, where it's probably a bit drizzly outside, I think, and probably about 8 degrees. So winter is certainly with us. G'day to, I can see a few comments there already. Certainly Paul Strike, g'day, mate, and Pete and Keza and William. Thanks for joining us. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Bouttell. I'm the CEO of RA-Aus, and it's an excellent opportunity for me to share some updates on RA-Aus, along with some of my views on the happenings around the industry. So just some housekeeping to start off with, and my team have been at pains to try and teach me all this technology. But I've got Cody and Moret working in the background tonight to help me with the technology. So thanks, team, for your giving up your evening to assist. And as I go along tonight, please feel free to ask questions and, or to add comments. I know we've already received a couple of questions via email over the last couple of days, and I'll address those later. I'll certainly going to talk about some of the more interesting issues facing RA-Aus. And, you know, RA-Aus has been doing these live streams now for, you know, a couple of years. It's a great medium to engage with our national membership, and of course, at this time during, you know, the COVID-19 restrictions, it's made it that much more important. And I know that a lot of our colleagues and other industry personnel have been using live stream to engage with their members, and hopefully tonight is as valuable as those ones. But nothing, of course, beats being out on the road at a local airfield and meeting with the members face to face. And hopefully we'll be doing that soon. I was hoping to get up to Queensland last weekend, but unfortunately with the restrictions, I was unable to do that. But some of my colleagues went up, and we thought that they were going to end up in quarantine last night, but thankfully they're still here with us. So it's been a bit of a crazy old year for us in aviation, not just for RA-Aus members, but for those of us, those people doing it for work as well, and our industry colleagues that have lost jobs and been put on stand down and work daily with the risk of contracting COVID. So I just want to put a special shout out to them tonight. It's really important. You know, this is a tough time for many people, and you know, I certainly feel for my former colleagues at Qantas at the moment, and likewise with all of our industry people who are affected by this. And let's hope that this latest disruption will go pretty quickly and we can get on with things once again. So it's been about 5.5 months since I joined RA-Aus, and I've got to say I'm loving every minute of it. My wife has commented how happy I am, and that you know, it's just RA-Aus has just exceeded my expectations. That's for sure. Our team, who's also your team, they work tirelessly for our members, and I really tonight want to acknowledge their hard work and dedication to help our community participate in a range of aviation pursuits. And I'm really inspired by this team, so I really want to thank each of you for everything you do for not only this organisation but for our members. I can honestly say that, you know, their dedication is aimed squarely at helping our members, and as is our board as well. And I really want to thank all of you for that. So Cody and I had to sit down and had a bit of a chat last night about, you know, what it is I'm going to talk about tonight, and he was fairly insistent that I indulge you with a bit of my story on, you know, who I am and where I've come from, and that's led me here today into this role. So firstly, I'm a father of 2 beautiful daughters. I live in regional New South Wales, just outside of Canberra, but I'm originally from Sydney. I'm a pilot, both in the VH world and the RAAus world, and have been since about 2010, I think. And I part own a Grumman Tiger, which I operate out of Canberra. And there's a picture of me there in full view out at Cobar, I think that was. So I try and get myself and my family or friends up in that as often as I can. I've also been known to fly my brother-in-law's Jabiru J120 in and around the Snowy Mountains, some of the most picturesque and you know, beautiful landscapes you'll ever see in this country. And so I'm forever grateful when I get those opportunities. So thanks to Alan for letting me do that. From a career perspective, look, I started out in this industry about 30 years ago as an apprentice airframe engine engineer and with Qantas, and progressed through various roles, eventually landing myself into flight operations, doing flight planning and working in all things navigation. And then had a short stint just before I left in 2008 in the group strategy area. So learning a lot more about the business side of things. After Qantas, I left and joined Air Services, working in the National Operations Centre as it was known back then, but it's now known as the NCC, the National Coordination Centre, I think. So good day to all my friends at the NCC. And then I moved into a more international role, looking after our programs to support our near neighbours up in Indonesia and PNG with things like ATC training, aviation rescue firefighting training. So I facilitated all of that. I certainly wasn't teaching people how to roll out hose around an aircraft fire or anything like that. And then I went into corporate affairs strategy, amongst other things. And in that role, I was actually quite engaged in the rollout of ADS-B, so automatic dependent surveillance broadcast for the upcoming, back then, the upcoming IFR mandates. So I've got a really good insight into the technology side of things in the air traffic management system, understanding the why, understanding the, who gets the benefit from these things, and hopefully, really, for RAAus and for our members, that's something that I really want to leverage off and to benefit, RAAus and also the industry more broadly. After Air Services, I left Air Services, I think, in 2016 and did a stint back at Qantas for the second time in flight operations before I moved to CASA for 3 years and in the stakeholder engagement division. And, many people, and I hope my CASA colleagues find this amusing, but when I left Qantas and I went to CASA, one of my good mates said to me, "Oh, you're a bit young to join CASA, aren't you?" But in all seriousness, it was 3 fantastic years, I have to say. I know that, CASA gets a bit of a bad rap around the, but I can honestly say that my colleagues at CASA, the ones that I worked with, certainly came to work every day and wanted to do the right thing for aviation safety. And from my perspective, that's a good thing. I was really lucky to also chair the RAPAC meetings around the country, the Regional Airspace Procedures Advisory Committees, and met some fantastic people around the country through the RAPACs, and who I remain in touch with today. That was a fantastic opportunity to work with a diverse range of industry participants, from charter operators to private operators, skydivers, ultralights, the whole shooting match, and really enjoyed my time with RAPACs, and that's now turned, CASA's done a bit of a change and moved that into the AVSEF forum and the Fly Safe forums. And I believe last week they had a Fly Safe up in Darwin, and that went fantastic. So when Fly Safe comes to you, I'd absolutely recommend that you get along and hear what all of our industry colleagues, be it in CASA or Air Services or ATSB or Defence or the Bureau of Met, what they've got to say. And it's a good opportunity also for you to, to ask them questions or, and have that good two-way dialogue. The other role I looked after was the Aviation Safety Advisory Panel as the Secretariat. So, whilst I'm indulging in sharing this with you, it's really important, I suppose. It was really important for me to look after the ASAP because it gave me an opportunity to grasp our regulatory framework. So when CASA was consulting, whatever regulation it may be through the ASAP and its technical working groups, I was really fortunate to be in the room to listen to the discussion. So I got to hear it from CASA's standpoint and from industry standpoint. And there were some pretty interesting moments at times, but ultimately everyone was aiming for the same thing. And I think that, if we can get more of that genuine consultation and involvement of industry, I think we'll end up with a much better outcome. And, later this year, we'll see the fruits of all that work that CASA and industry did with the implementation of the flight operation regulations. So in February last year, I'm getting to the end of talking about my favourite subject, me. But in February last year, it's a bit ironic, really. I left a good, stable government job to rejoin Qantas for the third time, and it was about a minute before COVID hit. So it was an interesting time at Qantas last year. It was mixed between exciting and depressing. Seeing colleagues losing their jobs or being stood down was genuinely heartbreaking. And I grew up with a lot of these people as a young apprentice, and it was very, very difficult. And I remember coming home from Melbourne after my second week and saying to my wife that I'm about to lose my job because things are going really bad because of COVID. And she was like, "Oh, you'll be right. You're overcooking this thing." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't think I am." Fortunately, I didn't lose my job, but the following Monday or Tuesday, I think it was, when the CEO of Qantas, Alan Joyce, came out and said there was going to be 15,000 staff stood down. And I know a lot of those people are, still suffering today, or have lost their jobs or had to move on. And that's a really tough thing. And for those of us who work in aviation, it's a small community. And we do know each other. So, we've all got to support one another during this time. So I didn't lose my job at Qantas. I was, as I say, one of those few lucky people, and I found myself working closely with Air Services to ensure that they could still provide, the air traffic control services and the aviation rescue firefighting services to keep the country moving. The very small number of flights, it was a really tough proposition for Air Services, and I really, really want to call out Air Services tonight and thank them, not only from an airline perspective, but as a private pilot flying out of Canberra. There was days where there wasn't another aeroplane in sight or an aircraft at the gate, and I'd taxi out and I'd always be welcomed by an ATC, and I knew that ARF were over the other side of the airfield on standby, ready in case I didn't do the right thing in the landing or something. So it's times like this, I think, that we all realise how lucky we are in this country, that we may have disagreements, be it with CASA or Air Services or with each other, but truly, it's a really good example of when it all turns to trumps, we're actually all trying to do something. We're all in this together. Anyway, last year was pretty hectic, obviously. So whilst I was doing the ATC air traffic management role, I was also trying to help repatriate Australians. So looking after doing the flight operations work and international compliance work to help bring Australians home, which was incredibly fulfilling, but also quite a challenge. So it was a pretty hectic year, I must say. A couple of the great things I got to do last year. And I'm telling you this in the context because people are, I know I've received correspondence and spoken to people who say, "But why did you leave Qantas?" Because you got to do some really cool things. And some of the cool things I got to do were, I helped arrange the final 747 flights. We did a couple of free send-off flights in Sydney, Brisbane, and Canberra. We couldn't do Melbourne because Melbourne was still under lockdown, but I was lucky enough to be in the cockpit as on the very last 747 passenger flight in and around Canberra and over the Snowy Mountains. So you can see that photo there on the 747. It's very last commercial flight before it then departed a couple of days later and did the awesome flyover at the Sydney Harbour Bridge and then down to Shell Harbour before it went off up the coast and drew the Kangaroo. And some of you may know that I was also involved in that, and that was at a pretty tough time back in, I think it was July last year, to have an opportunity to play such a significant role, I think anyway, in Australian aviation, to send off the 747 in such style. It's something I'll certainly never forget. And of course, last year was the 100th anniversary of Qantas. So, what a downer for Qantas that all this stuff was happening. Fortunately for me, Qantas wanted to do a flyover at the Sydney Harbour in a 787, which is all dressed up in the 100th anniversary livery. And of course, I had to be on board to do a test flight of that. And you're seeing some photos there of the aircraft had to do maintenance flights every so often. So one of the maintenance flights I was asked along for, and we did a test flight just to make sure that everything was all right. So I was pretty lucky there. You may recognise that big coat hanger there. So flying down the harbour at 1,500 feet was certainly one for the bucket list, that's for sure. So some people have asked, why would I voluntarily leave Qantas to join, essentially a not-for-profit organisation and responsible for administering little aeroplanes, recreational aircraft. In my career, I've been really lucky. I've been blessed to, engage across the industry, in all parts of the industry, be it the aerial work or the helicopter industry or recreational aviation industry. And RA-Aus, for me, particularly over the last 5 years, has just gone from strength to strength, and it really, the values that our members and our staff have just resonate with me. And so when the opportunity came up for me to apply for this role, it was a no-brainer for me. And again, I'm loving every minute of it. To go out to the airfield and see powered parachutes or trikes or microlights, through to complex 3-axis aircraft that have got avionics that rival a Boeing 787 is just fantastic. And, I look back at the engineering stuff that I did when I was an apprentice, and I see these amazing amateur-built aircraft that our members continue to build. It's really inspirational. And so for me, RA-Aus is aviation for me. And, there's so many different areas of aviation, and RA-Aus is, to me, it's where 10,000 members, 3,500 aircraft, that's a large percentage of the entire aircraft fleet in the country. So to lead this organisation is really a privilege. So obviously, I'm all about aviation, and I'm also about positivity. So, this role for me is not, I'm not only the accountable manager of RA-Aus, but I'm also here because I really genuinely believe that RA-Aus has an opportunity to lead this industry and to bring it together. So for the advancement of aviation, and that's in our constitution, that we are here to advance all aviation. It doesn't matter what it is. So, RA-Aus, the opportunity to lead that is fantastic. I see I'm getting a few likes on there, so thanks, Paul. Paul Strike from up in Caboolture. So getting, that's probably it about me. That's probably gone on for too long as it is, so I apologise. But I think it is important that our members understand who's leading our organisation, and hopefully, have confidence that, that you understand that we're here, and I'm here to look after the interests of our members. And also, I do see that it's our responsibility to all play in the sandpit, more broadly, for aviation, and that's absolutely what my intention is. I've got a question there from George. Welcome to the role, Matt. Where did you see the youth? Where do you see the future of youth engagement heading for RA-Aus? Thanks, George. Look, that's a really important point. The aviation, if you go around to any flying airfield around the country, it won't be a surprise to many of us to know that the demographic of aviators in this country, and probably the world more broadly, is certainly too far to the right. So we've got, I think the average age of our membership is around 51 years of age. So it's really important, I think, for us to engage with our members, and we've got our scholarship program, and we'll soon be announcing who our junior scholarship award winners are. And again, shout out to Air Services who certainly support that program. We also, being out at airfields and trying to inspire, going to air shows and going to fly-ins and trying to inspire our youth is a really positive thing as well. And one thing I'm really proud of this year is we've got a maintainer, an aircraft maintainer scholarship. And, this country is has a shortage of LAMEs, of licensed aircraft engineers. And, anything that RA-Aus can do to support that, because, without licensed engineers in this country, I think that, as an aircraft owner, it's a real challenge because it means it's difficult for me to find someone to fix my aircraft. But I think, from an economic standpoint, it makes sense for us to have more LAMEs as well to support the commercial industry. And I see, our maintainers, whilst they're not, they may work towards getting a license, an aircraft license maintenance engineer becoming a licensed aircraft maintenance engineer later. This is a great start for them, and perhaps they might remain as an RA-Aus maintainer, a level 2 maintainer, or build up to a level 4. And that's a really important role, and I think that we can do something for our young people in that space. There's certainly lots to do in that youth space, and I think it's incumbent upon all of industry to recognise that we've got that challenge ahead of us. Moving right along, yesterday morning I had the tremendous opportunity to present a life membership to one of our long-standing members and aircraft owners. Some of you may know this gentleman, Max Brown. Max has donated, we estimate, about 2,500 hours of his own time to assist RAAus, mainly in the technical and aircraft area. He's audited aircraft files for compliance. He's what else has he done? He's digitised files and cleansed database records and done a whole raft of things. And not only has it been invaluable to the staff here, but certainly for our members as well, to make us more efficient and to generally help us in the office to keep things ticking along. Max has also been a significant contributor to the organisation of the annual Holbrook Easter fly-in, and I went out there at Easter time in this role, and I can say it's fantastic out there and great people, and say good day to everyone out at Holbrook. And I'm sure they'd agree that through his volunteer work with RA-Aus over a long period, he's become a role model, but not only a role model, but a great resource for the club members out at Holbrook regarding aircraft registration and compliance. So yeah, look, yesterday was tremendous opportunity for me to be there for his presentation, and our chairman Michael Monk presented Max with a gold membership card. There's a photo of Michael and Max and myself, as you can see, and I did suit up for it because I thought it was a pretty. So sorry, Michael, but I suited up because it was a pretty important thing for me to be there to recognise Max's nomination and his induction to being a life member of RAAus. So Michael said that it was one of the easiest decisions that the board has ever had to make, and they were all thrilled to bestow this honour on Max, not only as a tireless volunteer, but also as a true gentleman as well, and I absolutely agree with that. Max wasn't aware that he was coming to the office to get an award, but someone in the office told him a little white lie, and him and his lovely wife came in yesterday and on Monday, I'm sorry, and we had a COVID-safe morning tea, and he was pretty emotional and extremely humble in accepting the award, and said many inspirational words about what it means to be an RAAus member. So congratulations, Max. It was truly an honour to play my small part in presenting the award. So thanks and well done. All right, so moving right along, I can see some of those comments are still coming through, and I can see one there on maximum takeoff weight. But if I can just keep you on the line there and stand by, James, I absolutely will be talking to that a little later. The next thing I want to talk about is our fees. So we sent an e-news out back in early June, letting everyone know that unfortunately our aircraft membership and registration fees have had to increase. And, this is a bit of pain, I suppose, that we're all feeling across the industry, be it RAAus or other sport aviation organisations. And, our fees hadn't gone up for about 2 years. And the board took a stand last year to not put the fees up on the basis of, with COVID happening, there was so much uncertainty that the board decided, look, let's just keep them the status quo and see what happens. And I'm sure that was welcomed from our members. But, ultimately our costs did increase last year and again this year. So it was necessary to put those fees up. And we tried to do so in such a way that was, not too painful for everyone, but we recognise no one likes fee increases. The board also decided to put those fees up in a way that we would incur a bit of a deficit this year. So the membership didn't feel the entire hit of what those fee increases, could have in fact been. So thanks to the board for that. Where do those cost increases come from? Well, a lot of it comes from, and I don't want to harp on this too much, but a lot of it does come from the fact that insurance prices have gone up, whether that's your car insurance or home insurance. I think most of us, or many of us, have felt the pain there. And we're no different here at RA-Aus. Our member insurance coverage has gone up, but likewise, we still do believe that it's represents terrific value for our members. I met with our insurers back in May to talk, to meet with them, and the fantastic folks at Insurance House and their underwriters. We had a very productive conversation, and the reality is insurance is going up. Globally, the price of insurance, and we're really grateful for the service and the products that we're able to offer our members through this, through their products. It's really important to note as well that if you had the amount of insurance coverage that you have through your RAAus membership, it would probably cost you many, many times the entire membership fee. So the fact that we're all in this together through, I don't know what the correct term is, be it a pooled insurance policy, but a group insurance policy, it does actually represent a fairly, substantial value for all of us. So we absolutely want to continue going with that insurance policy into the future, and but obviously, we'll just have to keep an eye on those costs. Moving into the next 12 months, so a bit more positive news, if I may, rather than talking about costs and fee increases. Whilst those fees are going up, our aim is to make sure that we extract as much value for your fees as possible, right? So, my team here, we do a lot of work that means you don't have to do it, and putting out our great manuals like the flight operations manual or the tech manual, so you don't have to bury your head into legislation and the like. We work closely with the government agencies to assist with things like the visual flight guide. All of that background work that we do, as I say, is to try and maintain safe and accessible flying for our members, and to try and minimise the red tape wherever we can. One of the other big ticket items we're about to commence is a major IT upgrade. That'll improve the member experience and enable you to do more transactions, and certainly be a lot more streamlined in the transactions through our website. We'll be doing our website refresh as well, so I'm very much looking forward to that. Steve, I see you've sent through a comment there, and I'll just have a read of that shortly, but I'll just continue on here. So the IT upgrade, a lot of people have said, oh, well, that doesn't really mean much to me, and I can sort of understand that. The idea, though, is ultimately to introduce more efficiencies into our organisation, so that the work that we're doing is a lot more high value for our members rather than being transactional based. So our systems haven't been upgraded for 6 years or so, so it's pretty important that we get this right. And hopefully you will see the benefit of that, start to come to fruition in the next sort of 12 to 18 months. We're ramping up our engagement and professional development programs with our members. We're also commencing a Let's Get Flying campaign, which aims to bring our community together at fly-ins around the country, and certainly to work closely with our affiliated clubs. It's one of the things for mine is, why do we do this? Why do we go flying? And, is it the $100 hamburger, or, is it to kick the tires and talk aeroplanes with our friends? Many of us do, commit aviation for a number of reasons. And recently we had a team, the team came together, and we actually asked ourselves this question about what does it mean? Why is RAAus so special and so important? And really a couple of things that came out of that, which was great for me still being new, was that, it's about community. It's about trying to help our members, have a reason to go flying, because we're doing it for fun, most of all. Obviously there's flight training schools out there and maintainers, but ultimately, we're about having fun. So the Let's Get Flying campaign is very much about bringing that community together and having that fun. We're also rolling out more content through our learning management system to support initially support our examiners and our higher authority holders. We're going to be delivering some professional workshops for them as well, hopefully using our simulator, which is a fantastic simulator here in Canberra. So we'll move that around the country to support them. One of the big parts for me also is, and I know there's, probably not a surprise, and it's music to the ears of our technical department, but with me being an ex-aircraft maintenance engineer, I'm really keen to support our existing aircraft and future aircraft owners on things around airworthiness. We also want to provide more educational opportunities for our maintainers. We certainly know that there's, flight safety solutions out there, just a shout out for Paul and Stuart there, but also up at Wings Out West. And, there's lots of opportunity for, that I believe that RAAus can stimulate that maintenance training space, and I think we can all benefit from it. I think the last maintenance training courses we put out sold out pretty much in the same day. So there's certainly lots of, interest in people doing maintenance training. And, again, from my background, I'd certainly recommend people, get on board and do those courses. Again, for this year, hopefully we've still got the Avalon Air Show in December. RAAus, provided it goes ahead and it's all COVID safe, we'll be there as usual, waving the flag. We've got, I think we've got 20 aircraft, RAAus aircraft coming down to beat our stand, and we had a great response from our call out to members recently. So thanks for everyone who put their name in to get the free fuel voucher. It was a bit of a carrot there, which we probably didn't need. I think everyone is really keen to come to Avalon as well and to talk aircraft. Some of the other activities, I'll just quickly go through them, is the implementation of Part 103 later this year. What does that mean? And I'll talk a little bit about that. And really, one of the big ones for me is advocating for our members and being out there actively and visibly advocating for whatever it may be. I can see, I might just go to Jeff here, and has there been any word on the changing Class E airspace? And that was a terrific example, I think, of where we really strongly advocated on behalf of our members, based on, we did a survey of our members to understand where their pain points are, what does the membership see, with controlled airspace, and what equipment do they have fitted. So we really informed ourselves on what our membership wanted, and then advocated really strongly. And certainly, fortunately for me, early in the piece, with that Class C coming up, and my background, I was certainly well equipped to assist Jill Bailey, our head of flying operations, in putting together a pretty succinct submission to Air Services. We're certainly very proud of that, and we think that we were heard loud and clear that certainly the first proposal, and hopefully the second proposal that Air Services subsequently put out, they took on board our concerns. So the answer to your question is there any word on the Class C airspace? No is the answer, but I'm hoping that silence is that Air Services is going back and having a look at certainly our submission and the many others that they received to try and understand, I suppose, where industry is coming from. It's important, though, when we do advocate, that we do it respectfully. And I was earlier, praising Air Services, and they do provide a great capability for this country. Doesn't mean that we always see eye to eye, and this is certainly one of those issues where we don't see eye to eye. And so hopefully, Jeff, that answers your question. I know it's not emphatic about where it's at, but I am hopeful that they've heard us loud and clear. So I've got my notes in front of me. I might just have a sip. So just stand by one, a sip of water. So Steve Curtis, I might just go to you, and I don't know whether Cody can put this up on the screen because it's quite long. Hi Matt, Airspace Access. I'm a current 787 sim instructor and held many GA qualifications. Yet to operate my RAAus registered Piper Cub from Camden, I'm required to undertake a GA flight review. On the same airfield, there are glider pilots operating with the gliding equivalent of an RPC and self-certified medical. Seems unreasonable and not compliant with the Civil Aviation Act. Well, Steve, I don't know about whether it's compliant or not, to be honest. I just actually don't know. But look, I absolutely hear your pain. I joined RA-Aus in 2010 because we were just about to get access to controlled airspace. And like you, having to do a flight review in a VH registered aircraft every 2 years and maintain a Class 2 medical, because a basic medical didn't exist back then, when all I was doing was flying a Jabiru with numbers on the back, seemed pretty overcooked to me. And I will talk more about this after, but around the access to controlled airspace, I think for me, I actually personally don't see the difference whether you're flying a Jabiru with a VH on the tail or numbers on the tail. The instructor might have different qualifications, and that could be a valid thing. But certainly, I think RAAus has proven itself that our flight training standards and our manuals and we're certified under Part 149. We certainly meet the in my books safe operations. We've also got many flying schools around the country that operate currently today at Class D aerodromes, and we've got one here in Canberra in a Class Charlie aerodrome where RAAus pilots operate under an exemption to do their flight training. Now, I think at the moment under that exemption they have to have a medical, a CASA medical, so that's a thing. But they're still doing their pilot training, and and then after they get their pilot certificate, they can then hire that plane from the flying school and still operate out of that airfield in controlled airspace with jets flying around. I think we've more than demonstrated that we can do this safely, and I think ultimately from a industry-wide perspective, I think we actually end up with a much safer outcome for the whole industry if those of us who are operating in and around jets, that we actually have consistent standards, and that's something that I've definitely been conveying to CASA and to Air Services, that it just doesn't really seem right to me. In terms of the gliding equivalent, look, they certainly operate differently. Once again, it's probably closer to us than what it is in the VH world. But that's for them to manage rather than us, and I certainly wouldn't want to undo their privileges for them. And I'm pretty much focused on RAAus and the privileges for our members rather than looking elsewhere at others. All right, so moving right ahead. This is probably going a bit longer than I was expecting it to, but one of the I suppose issues that I've encountered since being in this job is a number of members, and I know, just from scuttlebutt around the traps as well, a lot of members have submitted complaints about airport charges. Look, I hear our membership loud and clear. Some of these members also sought advice from the Australian Information Commissioner and to find out whether our privacy policy was compliant, and that's because the way that this works is we have an MOU, a memorandum of understanding with the Airports Association, where we provide aircraft information to aerodrome owners for the purpose of charging. Now, this has been in place for a number of years, or for a few years at least. The challenge we've got is that we don't own these airfields, and unfortunately, in some cases, it's the owner's prerogative to charge as they do. And if we don't have permission to land at these airfields, we're breaking a bunch of laws, including aviation regulations. So we're sort of between a rock and a hard place, because there's many members who are like, oh, well, I've got to pay landing fees, fair enough. And there's a lot of others who are like, no, I don't want to pay landing fees for whatever reason, and that's fine. So I just want to call it out. It's certainly, the people I've spoken to who've popped in complaints, I really want to call them out and thank them, because they've all been, very respectful about this. No one's trying to cause trouble. It's just that they're trying to resolve an issue. And I've had some great conversations with these people or these members, I should say. The beauty, I suppose, from my perspective, what I'm really interested in is making sure that we're compliant, and we are, with the Privacy Act of 1988. But notwithstanding that, I think the noise coming in from members about this issue is real, and so we need to do something about this. So what are we doing? Look, we continue to advocate. I did meet up briefly and informally with the AAA CEO up in Dubbo a month ago, and had a bit of a chat about it there, and we're going to have more of a chat. But I think more broadly, there's an opportunity for us to do some work at RAAus to look at what's the economic benefit that our operations bring to a local town when we fly to an airport. And one of the gentlemen who I've been talking to, one of our members about this issue, raised a really valid point around, things like caravan, the grey nomads driving around the countryside. A lot of towns, advocate to get those people to come to their towns because they recognise the economic benefit of those of the camper vanners and the caravanners coming to their town. Now, we need to do some work to understand, what do people actually, spend when they fly into a town? Some people, and we've all done it, we just land, get some fuel, and then bug out. And but others, a lot of people stay overnight and go and use the local motel and have dinner at the RSL or a restaurant, and that's good money for a lot of these, particularly regional towns. So we're going to do a bit of work and to try and understand what that economic benefit is and try and leverage that. There's also things like our members leasing hangars at their airport, and that's feeding money back into the system as well. Another thing that we're looking at, again, a suggestion that I received from a member is to do something like have an RA-Aus friendly airport. So we need to do some work, and this member, in fact, is doing some of that work to actually look at where are all the airports that either have a nil or a very reasonable landing fee. They have good facilities. They're walking distance into town. Can we, and then can we contact those aerodrome operators or those local councils to say, hey, we want you to join our RAAus friendly airports program, and then try and bring benefit, real benefit to their town, and also benefit our members as well. Sorry, I'm being distracted by these comments coming in too. I'll come back to that, Jason. Thank you. So there's a bunch of ideas we're throwing around. It's a live issue. It will be, I think, ongoing. But I really do, I suppose, want to call it out. I don't think hiding behind anything and not discussing these issues is the right way about it. And I think it's a really good opportunity for me to share with you guys what it is that we're doing in that space. Next, I'd just like to give a plug about some of you on social media may have seen quite a bit of post sharing around a short film that's going to be released tomorrow. It's called The Aviator, and Cody's just put that up on the screen. Thanks, Cody. And it's the story of Australian Aviation Hall of Fame inductee Bob Tate, OAM, and his journey to converting over to an RPC. Many of us will know of Bob Tate through the textbooks that we've used, or some of us may have done flight training up in Queensland with Bob. How else would I know about the Coriolis effect unless I looked at if I didn't use Bob's textbooks. But look, I can honestly say this is a beautifully captured story, not only about aviation, but about a tremendous doyen of our community. And whilst I'm spruiking it for, to you guys, not just about RAAus, but just in aviation in general, I think there's going to be many aviators that in this country who will watch this and be truly inspired by, a terrific story. So, a special call out to Neil Schaefer, our head of training and development, who's done a lot of work with Stephen Limkin on this film, and thanks to AAT up at Redcliffe and to the Bob Tate Theory Centre as well for making this become a reality. So I understand this will be released at 7 p.m. tomorrow night on our website and on YouTube. So keep an eye out for that. And honestly, it's a fantastic short film. Goes for about half an hour, sit yourself down and do yourself a favour, if I quote Molly Meldrum. Next, safety culture. Just a quick one there on safety culture. I know that I'm dragging on a bit, but look, safety culture for me is super duper important. We all come from all walks of life. into recreational aviation. And the safety culture that, we really want to instill is one of, trust. And, there's the buzzword of just culture, but really it's about no blame. If you have an incident or an occurrence, and you put a report into our OMS system through the website, we review all of this data, and the aim of that is to address any issues that come up, but not about punitive action towards the member. It's really so we can learn. So us here at RA-Aus, we can certainly use that data to understand any trends, and then we can develop our educational materials so that we can all learn from that. It's really, really important. I can't stress highly enough how important to put a report is for our SMS to function properly. And just a quick yarn, many years ago I was learning to fly out of Bankstown, and I was doing my GFPT, back then the old restricted license, and I was on final approach for runway 29, and I said to my instructor, "Oh, there's pigeons," and it looked like someone's prized homing pigeons were flying around just west of the airport. And sure enough, 2 of those pigeons came up through the prop, and I had feathers in the cabin, and it was all pretty exciting. But anyway, we landed safely, and I didn't put a report in because I didn't know back then, to be fair, that safety reporting was so critical. I remember this not only because I hit the birds, but I remember this incident because I didn't actually put a report in to let everyone else know that, hey, there's pigeons, and they look like homing pigeons. There's pigeons flying around this airport, and that's really valuable information, as we all know, for pilots. My instructor could have very easily, and she was a great instructor, I highly valued her, but she could have easily said to me, "Look, we're just going to stop now. We're going to taxi in. We're going to go up and do the paperwork, and just going to pop a report in just to let people know that this is a thing." So I really want to encourage all of you to do some safety reporting. I want you to hear it from me also that our system is based on trust. It's not about punitive action. If someone is willfully non-compliant or flaunting the rules or causing chaos intentionally, that's a different kettle of fish. But we all make mistakes, or we all have incidents. We're human, and I suppose my message here is that let us help you and all of our members by using that data for educational purposes. A few questions there about scholarships. So I actually don't know the answer to when the scholarships will be announced. I do have Moret on in the background, so I might, Moret, get you to send me a quick message about when those scholarships are being announced, if you know that, and I'll wait until that comes out, until you give me that information. But I might just move on to the final subject tonight before I just go into a quick Q&A. Is a bit boring for some people, so I apologise, but regulations. I just wanted to give an overview of what Part 149 is, because now that RAAus is a 149 approved sport aviation organisation, what does that actually mean? Look, for me, it's a 149 ASAO, as we call it, is really the exact same structure of that of an air operator certificate. So effectively, we're a huge airline or a big operation, except that RAAus is only responsible for we're only certified to conduct the administration of aviation activities. And our certificate has, I'm pointing to it because it's on my desk here, and it's pretty prescriptive about the functions that we can undertake in that administration role. Of course, in an airline or a flight training school or a 141 or 142 flight training school, that their certificate goes all the way down to the operation of the aircraft and maybe maintenance or whatever. Ours sort of stops at the administration level, where our members, are actually responsible for maintaining compliance with all the regulations in our manuals. So it's I can't spell it out more simply than that about what 149 means. I think an important bit is to say that it gives me assurance that what we do here in RAAus is done with structure, We could be audited by CASA. They keep an eye on us, and anyone in business has been who's been audited or whatever. Auditing is not something to be afraid of. Auditing is actually a really good thing. We do internal audit, and those flight training schools out there would know that we have an audit program in our safety assurance system. So auditing is actually not an evil thing. 149 for me, as the accountable manager of this organisation, gives me comfort that what we're doing is actually right, and if it's not right, we can change that up. The next part from a regulatory standpoint, and I said I'd speak to this earlier about the MTO and CTA access. So at this stage, and we're still confident, well, we believe that this is still the case, that on the 2nd of December this year, CASA is, the flight operation regulation suite is coming into effect. So there's about 10 regulations for everybody who flies aeroplanes that's coming into effect. So there's Part 91 and Part 103 that affect RAAus. Part 91 is the general flight operation, general operating rules, for aircraft. And 103 is a separate regulation which works alongside that and turns certain provisions on and off. And also it is basically a lift and shift of our 95 series exemptions going into Part 103. So all of that information in the current exemptions will go into Part 103. Look, this is probably one of the largest regulatory changes that the country's seen, because not only you've got us, you've got all the other sport aviation orgs who will transfer across to 103, but you've also got the airlines in Part 121, 135. It's very much the way that the US system works, sort of. But in America, for example, they'll say, "Oh, it was a Part 91 operation." Well, what they're saying is it's a private operation, and that's where we're heading here in this country. From an MTO perspective, and so the maximum takeoff weight, at the moment we all know that we're limited to 600 kilos, and CASA has, we've worked with CASA for many years to try and increase that to 760 kilos. There was a consultation done a couple of years ago by CASA which went out, and the surprising thing I think for RA-Aus was that there was a 45 knot stall limit contained within that consultation, so that any aircraft that stalled at a speed greater than 45 knots would be excluded. That's a real, I suppose, disappointing outcome. What that will do is exclude a lot of aircraft, or would exclude a lot of aircraft from being able to take advantage to come across to RAAus. So we're certainly working very, advocating very strongly on behalf of all of you with CASA to try and have them understand that that's, there's no sense in having a 45 knot stall speed. It's just unnecessarily limiting. There are aircraft on our register today that are certified, or LSA aircraft that could actually operate well beyond 600 kilos, but as they go up in weight, their stall speed goes past that 45 knots. So that means that they actually wouldn't be able to take advantage of that, all of that maximum takeoff weight increase. So notwithstanding that, and the fact that we are advocating strongly, and certainly Michael Monk and I met with Pip Spence, the new CASA DAS, or Director of Aviation Safety, last week, I think it was, down here in Canberra. And we certainly, advocated strongly about that particular issue, because we just can't see any sense in it at all. It's quite an artificial limitation. So hopefully that will pay off. But I think in the meantime, we're working on the technical working group. So we've got Michael Monk and Jared, our head of airworthiness, on the technical working group for Part 103, which they've been working alongside all of our other sport aviation colleagues and CASA to work through to ensure that there is a pathway for maximum takeoff weight increase in Part 103. So if that comes off, I would suggest that it may be available for our members from December this year. And I can see, Mark, Kyle, you've just put through a question, just get the new MTO first and then work on the stall speed later. Yeah, look, it's certainly that's certainly we've discussed this a lot in RAAus, but given it's taken 10 or 15 years to get us to that to this point, we're a little bit gun shy and a bit reluctant, I think, to accept a lesser standard or a lesser proposition from CASA on this, because they've got a whole bunch of work that they're doing, and we don't want to be left out. So MTO, look, I think many CEOs of RAAus, I think, have sat in this office and said, we're just about there, guys, and we're about to do it. I suppose I am falling into that trap, in that I do believe that Part 103 will provide us with a pathway for increasing the maximum takeoff weight. And I think Mark, we certainly agree that we need to negotiate on this stuff, and we'll see where this falls out. At the end of the day, it's a possibility, I suppose, that CASA might just dig their heels in and say no, and then it'll be a decision for myself and for the board to say, okay, well, where do we go with this? I wouldn't want to preempt that, however. With CTA access, again, that's another item which we are hopeful to see a pathway for in Part 103. I talked earlier about getting a much better overall safety outcome for everybody, for all airspace users, if everyone uses standardised procedures, and I absolutely subscribe to that. If we look at what's happening up in Ballina, where we've got lots of jets flying into Ballina, we've got a lot of a different mix of traffic, be it helicopters, microlights, Piper Warriors, you name it. We've got a whole raft of different aircraft flying through there, and my belief is that if we're all, and I'm not suggesting that everyone will have to get a controlled airspace access either, but when we are operating into a busy airport, upskilling and getting that additional training to get a controlled airspace endorsement can only benefit all airspace users. At the moment, what we've got is a system where, unfortunately for the Office of Airspace Regulation, it's a challenge for them to meet the equitable use of airspace requirement that's in the Australian Airspace Policy Statement. So when they're looking at new airspace models or whatever, they have to take into account the first priority is to keep paying passengers safe, but they also need to make sure that they're keeping everyone else safe. And that means that they need to ensure that they're meeting, that no one's left behind, basically. Unless they absolutely have to make a change where people will miss out operating in a piece of airspace. So, our proposition is certainly that, if we can alleviate that equitable use of airspace problem by ensuring that people who are operating in that airspace all have the same skill set, it really takes that away for the OAR. So it's a real benefit for CASA, I think, and also more broadly. And if I put my old airline hat on, I certainly know that it would be welcomed from the airlines and from the commercial community that the standard of radio calls and whatnot is on par with across everybody. So look, we're strongly advocating on both of those issues, and as RAAus has done for many years. And I do think that we're being heard loud and clear. If I look at our Class E proposal, RAAus was seen as being very productive in that space around, not just saying no, we don't want it, but actually why, and trying to educate the rest of industry of who we are and what we do, and that this isn't just a black art that's sitting off to the side of the rest of aviation. We are a major part of this aviation industry in this country. So, I go back to the Aviator, that I think once everyone sees that, they'll really truly go, wow, this is, RAAus is a fantastic community. They do some fantastic work, and they're actually not much different to us. So, again, do yourself a favour and share that as much as you can, because I think it can only benefit all of us, because it's truly an inspirational story. So that's probably it from my update, and I've talked for an hour, so hopefully I haven't bored you all. Thanks, Cody and Marette there. Scholarship results for under 25s have been delayed temporarily, and I think that's related to COVID. So apologies there. Over 25 maintainers and instructors were sent out today. I did know that it was soon, but there you have it. So thanks, team, for putting that up on the screen. Hopefully that answers some of your questions. I'm just going to go through some of these. Thanks for some of the compliments, everyone. So how do I watch the Aviator? I think I answered that, but it's on the RA-Aus website. There's a link there, and it'll be on our YouTube channel. It'll also be on Facebook too, as I understand it. Are there any other questions in here? I'm just having a look. A bit about MTO. Oh, there we go. Lenroy, thank you. What do I see as our toughest challenge or my toughest challenge in this role in the next 12 months? Probably, if I'm honest, is about MTO and CTA access. This is, as I said before, many CEO has sat in this office thinking that we're nearly there. I'm not going to say it's there yet because I think that would not be genuine. But I think we do have a pathway towards getting that by, into the Part 103 regulations. I think the biggest challenge from that will be ensuring that we can implement and get the approval in our Part 149 exposition to implement that as soon as we can. I think the other challenge for us is obviously with COVID. A challenge for me is making sure that we can maintain a audit program that looks after our people and ensures also that our staff can get out into the field to conduct those audits with our flight training schools. I think that that's a really important safety tool that RAAus and our industry has. I think there are a couple of challenges for us. I can see there, Jeff, that CTA access is so important. Look, I couldn't agree more with you on that. Just a bit of anecdotal evidence. When I first started in this job, I was of the absolute same view. CTA access is so important, and I couldn't believe that number one, that we don't have it yet, but also that why wouldn't other people see that CTA access is so important? It's really interesting that we actually get a lot more inquiries and I'll say comments, not complaints, but inquiries from our members about increasing that maximum takeoff weight. CTA absolutely is up there, but I would say that, the MTO is a bigger issue for our members at this point in time. And that was a surprise to me, but the data that we have from all the surveying that we do of our members certainly supports that. Hi, Matt. Would RAAus consider running a program to cover purchasing, ownership and maintenance, etc. of aircraft, maybe to highlight pitfalls and long-term hidden costs for the first-time buyer? Thanks, Jason. That's a great question. We are just about to advertise for a new role. It's a 12-month role, I might add, and that's to give us a bit more bandwidth in our technical area. One of the largest pieces of work that I want to see over the next 12 months is producing material that actually, call it a purchaser's guide or whatever it might be, but a guide to people who are buying aircraft. What are the things, when I joined RAAus, I thought, I know a fair bit, I've been around the traps. It's been a really interesting journey for me to realise that, number one, there's a lot to learn with RAAus, particularly around LSA aircraft, but also amateur built and type certificated. I think there's a lot of work to be done to ensure that everyone's aware of what they're getting themselves in for, if you like. Informed participation is just that, being informed. And whether it's about informed participation, we all have that decal on our dashboard on our light sport aircraft, and and that says that you're going to be it doesn't mean it's not in alignment with, I can't remember the exact wording, but it's not in alignment with the certified aircraft world and yada yada. I also feel strongly that people need to understand that when they're buying an aircraft, it's not just informed participation when you're operating, but it's also informed participation participating when you own an aircraft as well, and or you're purchasing an aircraft. And I can see there Paul Strike, thanks Paul, is FS Flight Safety Solutions is developing an interactive online aircraft owners course, and as I said earlier, I think maintenance training is really important, but I think this type of training is equally as important. And it's when I bought into an aircraft, I don't own the whole thing, but there's a lot of stuff that I didn't know. So I think that we can, by RAAus supporting our members by producing that material is a really good thing. Gareth Davey, Roger Hall. Sorry, Gareth, I'll go back to you shortly. Roger, RAAus has given aircraft ownership details to third parties, yet our own members cannot access this info. Why can it not be included in the check rego section of the website? Well, Roger, it's a really good question. The privacy policy, and I've learned a lot about this over the last 6 months. The privacy policy needs to adhere to the Privacy Act, and there's a bunch of principles that we need to maintain, or we need to comply with. One of those principles, I can't remember which one it is, 5 or 6, talks about how can we use data. Now we could, when people register an aircraft or become members of RAAus, we could certainly get express permission to share that data. I think, however, that there would be overwhelming concern from most of our members about doing that. CASA obviously provide that information on their website about VH registered aircraft, and that's part of being, going down that VH path. RAAus, we don't do that. And as I say, the privacy principles would mean that we have to ask express permission. The way that we meet that is with our agreement that we have with the aerodromes, is that it is a genuine secondary reason for providing that information to the aerodromes for the purposes of our members maintaining the privileges of operating at those airports. Gareth, I'll go back to you. Great to see you on here tonight. Gareth is a fellow I met from up at North Queensland that I met through the RAAus, and always been a wealth of knowledge. So can the way we operate with relative harmony in the Proserpine CTAF with daily jet traffic would it help solve the problems being encountered at Ballina? Perhaps the traffic density at Ballina is much higher. Look, I think probably the latter is absolutely right. If I look back at my time, or last year, when New South Wales people couldn't travel up to Queensland, everyone decided to go to Byron Bay or to Ballina, and the airlines were just loading up the capacity into Ballina. And really, it was comparable. The amount of traffic back then, maybe not now, but the amount of traffic back then was comparable to Hamilton Island and the various mix of traffic. And it's arguable whether a control tower should have gone in there. I don't think we're quite at that stage in Proserpine. I don't think we quite have that traffic. Maybe once all the Australian borders open up again, that might be the case, because we're still not allowed to travel overseas, but because it's a beautiful part of the world up there. But certainly, yeah, Ballina's, it is next level. And, the RAAus had a bit of a challenging time, as has Air Services, I think, in trying to manage that situation. Special shout out, I can't remember the name of our flight training school at Ballina, but I know that our members up in Ballina have certainly been really engaged in that process up in Ballina. And I really want to thank you for your local knowledge and your professional way of working with everyone on the issue, because it's certainly a thing, as I like to say in the office, when I don't know how else to describe it. What else have we got there, Cody? Have we got any other questions you'd like to pop up on the screen? Here we go. Hi. I'm a previous CASA Amy, fixed wing on basics and later helicopters. I'm very keen to get a level 2 maintenance engineer RAA. With RAA, what's the quickest and easiest way in doing so? Well, our technical manual, if you go onto our website, the technical manual is in there. But essentially, if you meet the criteria in our technical manual, essentially it should be a form to get your level 2. You may have to, depending on your level of experience, but you may have to, if you've done your apprenticeship, you may have to do a supervised. I haven't got the manual here in front of me, I'm afraid, but you may have to do a supervised annual on an aircraft and go from there. But I'd certainly recommend that you go and have a look at the at the technical manual. It's something, White Star Aviation, thank you, Neil, appreciate it. White Star at Ballina, thank you very much. So shout out to White Star up at Ballina. But back to the question about getting a level 2. Look, I'm thinking about doing the same myself. I'm not a level 2, but I did an apprenticeship, albeit quite a long time ago. But I want to put myself through the process as well to, number one, go and work on some little aircraft, but also to experience, I suppose, how I get that recognition in RA-Aus. What else? Anything else there? Oh, there we go. Thanks, Cody. Tech Form 15 on the RA-Aus website to apply for an L2 maintenance authorisation. All right. Are there any other questions that I haven't necessarily addressed? I do sincerely apologise if I've missed them because I've gone a lot longer than I was expecting. No, I don't think so. There we go. Thank you for joining. I'm being given the wind up. But look, thank you very much. This is a great organisation. Our members, honestly, the volunteers and the positive attitude of everyone in this organisation. It's truly inspiring, and I feel very fortunate to be in this job. And we all certainly work as hard as we can to make sure that we continue to enjoy the privileges and the freedoms that we do have, and certainly to increase those as well. So I'll leave you with a short clip of the Aviator. Thank you very much, and look forward to, fingers crossed, getting out there very shortly to meet as many of you as I can.
And there they go, those magnificent men in their flying machines.
In the early days, he was very charismatic. He was just passionate and driven.
I think it's our duty, actually, as an organisation, and I sat down in Dubbo in 2014 and we added up 457 men, women years of experience in the room.
Stall, recover, lower the nose and apply the power.
I just said my job in my tenure with RA-Aus is to capture that.
Bob is someone that I want to aspire to be as a flying instructor.
We're going to start the process of converting your general aviation qualifications to RA-Aus qualifications.
Oh, beautiful example of side slip. Okay, practice.
Okay. Right, I can't see anything, so I'm just going to try to ditch it over here. Maintain 50 knots.
I just often say to my instructors, you're not the top of the tree, you're in the middle of the ladder. You're reaching down to grab someone's hand and say, come on up. A lot of them will achieve what you've never achieved. And you should be proud of that because that's your job.